Hey everybody, it's Jared Johnson. I want to tell you a story. It's a story that occurred on November the 1st, 2002. A lot of you that know me well know this story, and a lot of you that know me don't know this story. I was at that time working at an aluminum factory in my hometown of Lewisport, Kentucky. And to give you a reference in terms of the environment I worked in, we produced aluminum coils of rod to be shipped out to other customers. And the process, I'll try to paint this picture for you to give you some idea of what I went through that day. The metal started out in liquid molten metal. Started out in the furnaces, we melted down. Goes through a process where it goes through some troughs. It's in liquid metal form, approximately 1,400 degrees at that point. Flows through, flows through, goes through a temperature change, comes out in the form of a solid bar, which is still about 900 degrees at that point. Bar goes up a trail, so to speak, goes about 15-20 feet in the air, goes through the mill where it's sized down to whatever size rod we're running. Rod goes on to a coiler machine where it's coiled up and banded up. This is one continuous process, and if there were problems anywhere along the way, it impacted the entire process. So on this particular day, I went into work at 7 a.m. We worked nothing but 12-hour shifts, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I go in Friday morning, 7 a.m. I want to point out that approximately 2 months prior to this, I had changed shifts, which meant I was still in the same department, but I was working different shift, therefore I had a different schedule. If I had stayed on my previous shift, I would not have been there on this day. Also on that day, November the 1st, 2002, Jerry Seinfeld was doing a show in Evansville, Indiana, which was approximately an hour from where I live. Now, I'm a huge fan of the show Seinfeld. I think it's the funniest show that's ever been on TV. So when I found out he was performing, I was like, okay, yeah, I think I want to go check that out. Very uncharacteristic of myself. I did not act fast enough. And it sold out before I could get tickets. I say that to say, had I got tickets on that day, I would have taken the day off from work and also would not have been there on that day. So these two seemingly unrelated events played a part in me being there on that day at this time. So when we started having problems, as we were having on this day, sometimes the bar would break as it was going through the mill. And rather than shut down the entire process, which was rather time consuming and costly to the company, we would raise the mill up and cut the bar into smaller sections so we could examine and see what was going on, if there was a problem with the metal, if there's a problem with something inside of the mill. And we had these electric shears that would cut that bar into sections, maybe 2 to 3 feet long, where they would fall to a conveyor belt, and then they would be stacked and put back into the furnace to be melted down and reused. So right when I got to work that morning, just after 7 a.m., bar starts breaking. We start having problems. So we're over there, we got the hood up on the mill, we're cutting the bar into pieces, we're sitting there trying to figure out what's wrong with it. And we can't figure it out. We're having all kinds of problems. And occasionally, so when the bar's being cut into sections, it's because the metal, as long as the metal's flowing, the bar keeps coming, okay? So sometimes the bar, as it was coming through, would get stuck on those electric shears, and it would start bowing up. Picture like I'm taking a bamboo stick, right, and poking it into a wall, and you keep pushing, it starts bowing up in the middle, right? Same thing would happen here. The piece of aluminum would hit those shears, metal keeps flowing, that bar starts bowing up. Well, once that bar would reach a certain height, it would get too heavy to stay in the air, and it would come crashing down. Now, when there's that much metal built up, you're talking roughly 300 to 400 pounds. And one of the first things they told me when I trained in that department was, if you ever see that bar start to fall, you get out of the way, and if anybody else is in the way, you get them out of the way. Tackle them if you have to. They'll thank you later. Because if that bar ever hits anybody in the head, it's going to kill them instantly. Now, no one had ever seen this happen. That was just the logic. for that much weight falling from that high in the air. And matter of fact, we did not even wear hard hats because the logic was the impact would kill you anyway. And I had seen this bar get stuck and fall like that numerous times. Never seen anyone get struck by it, but I'd seen plenty of grown men run for their lives because no one wanted to be in this thing's path. No one wanted to get hit by it. Alright, so there I am on that Friday morning, and we'd been fighting with this thing for 2 hours trying to get it under control. Here we are, hot, sweating, breathing hard, thirsty, trying to get this nonsense figured out so we can get it to flowing smooth again. Sounds like a horrible job. It actually wasn't. I genuinely really liked working there. It was a great schedule. It was a pretty good job when things went smooth. In a lot of ways, it's still to this day the best job I've ever had. In some aspects, not in others, but in some ways. Some ways it's the best job I've ever had. Anyway, around 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, the bar gets stuck on the shears. It starts to bow up. We'd seen this happen numerous times. We all knew what to do. We would spring into action. Whoever was closest would grab some steel tongs, clamp onto that bar, wrangle it loose, and then guide it over, cut it into the shears, and guide it back through the shears and move on. Normally that worked just fine. Sometimes it took 2 or 3 guys. There were many times where I did it by myself. It wasn't impossible. Well, on this day, it gets stuck. It starts bowing up. Myself and 2 other guys all grab tongs. We all clamp onto this thing. And even with 3 of us, 3 grown men, clamped on this thing, highly motivated to get it under control, pulling, speaking for myself, exerting about as much force as I was capable, it wasn't moving. I've never seen it be this much trouble to dislodge. Like I said, I've personally done it by myself multiple times. All 3 of us pulling this thing on this day, it was not coming off. Never seen it be that hard. Then as we're fighting with it, those electric shears suddenly kick backwards, which I had never seen happen. Later someone explained it to me as, that must have been an electrical malfunction. Never seen that before. Kicked sideways, knocked all of us to the left. Well, I was standing closest to where the floor cuts off, and there's about a 6.5 foot drop down to another floor. So I go flying off the edge of that. Tongs go flying out of my hands. Well, I land on all fours, kind of in a crouched down position, but I caught my balance. I was fine. Well, in my mind, I knew. I only had a few more seconds probably until that bar started to fall. You had a mental idea of about how long you had, because I'd seen it happen too many times. Well, where I landed put me directly in the path of where that bar was going to land. Well, I already had a plan. As soon as I got to my feet and got balanced, I was going to run to my right, up some other steps to where the molten metal area was. I was going to let the bar crash and land. Then I was going to come back down. Seemed like a perfect plan. And if I'd had about 2 more seconds, I think I could have pulled that off. Problem is, I never had the opportunity to try it. Before my legs were fully extended, before I had my balance, I heard my supervisor, Donnie Sanders, yell, "Look out!" And I knew what he was yelling about before I even felt it. That bar had begun to fall, and it blasted me right on my bare head. We're talking 300 to 400 pounds of aluminum falling from 15 to 20 feet in the air. It didn't glance off something else and barely grazed my skull. My skull broke its fall. It busted me right on the head, knocked me flat on my face. My safety glasses went flying across the room. I fell flat on my face. The bar landed beside me on the floor. Now, it was still 900 degrees with that much weight. Almost landed on me. Could have burnt me to death, of course. And I heard a collective yell of fear and disbelief from all the guys who'd seen it happen. Now you may be wondering, how did I feel the floor shaking? How did I hear these guys yell after it hit me? Well, it's real simple. I was still conscious. Knocked me flat on my face, but did not knock me out. I laid on the ground for a few seconds, stood back to my feet, shook my head, and I just stood there for a few seconds. I wasn't disoriented. I wasn't even dizzy. I wasn't grabbing onto railing or having somebody help me walk. I stood up perfectly like normal. But I stood there for a few seconds before I started walking, because I remember thinking to myself, there is no way that just happened, because that would have killed me, yet here I stand. Then I quickly decided I can ponder the peculiarness of this later. We still got work to do. So I step over the bar that had just knocked me to the ground, walk up some steps on my own, grab another set of tongs. I'm about to go back to work because this metal's still flowing, the bar's still coming. All the guys who had seen it hit me were staring at me. They had the most terrified looks on their faces that I've ever seen on any human's faces. Just staring at me, speechless. Later, several of them told me, we didn't think we'd seen you die. We knew we had. We knew we had seen you be killed. And then you stood up and started walking towards us like nothing even happened. I was about to tell them, guys, we can talk about this later. We got work to do. Then I felt something warm begin to trickle down my head. And I was already covered in sweat, so I already knew what this was. And suddenly it was like someone had turned on a faucet. And I just saw red gushing over my eyes. Blood starts going everywhere. So then I'm thinking, great, now I gotta go to the hospital. I wasn't in pain, I felt fine, I wasn't dizzy. I slammed those tongs on the ground. I was like, now I'm gonna waste time going to the hospital. Great, my day's ruined. Yes, in that moment, that actually is what I was thinking. I was worried about being inconvenienced. Here we gotta go waste some time going to the hospital. So I'm walking, we have a nurse's station in the building next door, and for those of you that don't know, I grew up in Lewisport. There's less than 2,000 people, one stoplight in the whole city. If you've ever seen Andy Griffith, you've seen Mayberry, you've seen where I'm from. There's no hospital. So the hospital's in the next county over. So I go into the nurse's station that morning, while we're waiting for the ambulance, and I remember looking in the mirror, in the side mirror of the car as we were going to the next building. I still remember, I can picture right now, blood from one side to the other just gushing down my face. Well, I go walking into the nurse's station, and I had never met this woman, don't know what her name was. She's just standing there. It was a quiet morning, there's nobody else in the room. She's over there organizing the cotton balls and the tongue depressors, and she may have been singing the theme song from The Sound of Music in her head for all I know. I don't know. She's enjoying her morning, and then here I come, looking like I'd been attacked by a bear or something. Like blood just gushing everywhere. So I come walking in. She takes one look at me, and I still remember before she could form a word, she's, and I almost said, ma'am, calm down. We're going to need an ambulance for you too. Just relax a little bit. I'm okay. So I sit down. I toss my gloves on the desk. I throw my earplugs in the trash, and she finally starts, wiping blood and trying to get me cleaned up. And then my supervisor, Donnie Sanders, comes in the room. Then the plant safety manager comes in the room. They've already called an ambulance. They're all panicked and breathing hard. I'm calmest one in the room. I'm like, yeah, no, guys, I'm good. Ambulance on the way. Okay, that's fine. Can't get the bleeding to stop, so she just bandages up my head. Ambulance gets there, and the emergency medical technicians put a neck brace on me, strapped me to a backboard, put me on a stretcher, put an oxygen mask on my face. They rolled me up in the ambulance, and here we are speeding down the highway, and they take my blood pressure at one point, and I remember one EMT just stared at me, and he said, boy, you must be awful calm. Your blood pressure is perfect. I said, yeah. I said, I feel fine, And I just remember praying on the way to the hospital, because I was very aware that what happened could have killed me instantly. And I remember telling God, I don't know what's going on. It's obvious you're in control. I'm in your hands, whatever happens. I really don't want to die today, God. I feel like I got a lot of life left to live. There's a lot of things I want to do. I want to see my niece and nephew grow up. I want to accomplish whatever it is that you've created me to do. However, if you're ready to call me home today, let's do it. I'm ready. I'm ready if you are. I'm in your hands either way. And I was as calm as could be, felt completely at peace. So we get to the hospital, go rolling in. Of course, it's an emergency room. It's called an emergency room for a reason. Everybody's rushing around and panicked. They come rolling me up in there, and they're yelling stuff like, adult male head trauma, head bleeding, get out of the way, coming through. And they roll me up in there. Everybody around me's all nervous, and they're asking me like, hey, you doing okay, buddy? How you doing? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. How are you today? And I was just talking normal, talking and joking with the doctors. And when my parents got there, I remember my mom saying later that, they didn't know what was going on. They just knew I got injured. Something hit me in the head, had to go to the hospital. They come walking in, and they're concerned, understandably. And I remember my mom saying that she was immediately put at ease when they got a few feet away from the room that I was in, because the first sound that she heard was my laughter. And she's like, okay, everything's okay. I recognized that laugh, and her and Dad walk in, and I had everybody in the room laughing. I'm just joking and laughing, and I was excited to be alive, honestly. So I'm just playing around and joking, and when they took me down to radiology to get the X-rays, I had those girls laughing so hard. They were taking different X-rays, and I was playing around like I was in a photo shoot. I was like, oh, okay, y'all want to do another one? Let's try this angle. Hold on. And I was doing different poses and different stares. Those girls were laughing. They looked at my chart. They said, this happened to you this morning? I said, yeah, just a few hours ago. They said, do you not even have a headache? I said, no, I feel good. How y'all doing today? And I was unfazed. And so then they go to clean me up, to staple me up, and they had to rinse out the cuts on my head with a water and peroxide mixture. And so I asked them for some towels so I could keep the blood from getting into my eyes. And they gave me a stack of towels, So they're cleaning out the wounds, and I took a towel and held it to my eyes right here. And when it got completely soaked, I threw it down and grabbed another one. And I continued that process. By the time they were finished cleaning out my wounds, I had literally soaked 7 full-size bath towels with blood. That's after I'd been bleeding all morning with it bandaged up. So then they go to numb me. So I'm going to put the staples in my hand. And that doctor told me, hey, I've got to inject you in the head to numb you. This is going to hurt bad. Even with everything else you've gone through today, this is going to hurt really bad. But if I don't do this, the staples will hurt worse. And I said, okay. And as he got ready, I just proceeded to give myself a little speech in my head. I said, okay, this doctor told you this was going to hurt, but it needs to be done. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to sit here and you're going to deal with it. You're not going to scream. You're not going to flinch. You're not going to beg him to stop. You're not going to do anything to make this man's job harder. He told you it's going to hurt. You're going to sit here and deal with it like a man. I just decided this is what we're going to do. Okay, Jared, here you go. So he starts injecting that needle into my head. And he was right. It didn't feel too great. But he injects me 2 or 3 times, and I just sit there, don't even react. And he looks at me, he asks me if I'm okay. I said, yeah, I'm good. He injects me 2 or 3 more times. He looks at me again because I still hadn't reacted. He said, you doing okay, buddy? I said, yeah. He injects me several more times. He finally just stops and stares at me. So I look over. I don't know I think something's wrong. And he just busts out laughing and shakes his head. And I'm staring at him, quizzically. And he finally says, man, he said, you got to be the toughest hombre I've ever seen in my life. I've seen so many grown men sit here and scream and beg me to stop. You're not even flinching. I'm injecting you right in the head. And I kind of laughed. I said, you told me it was going to hurt. I was ready for it, And it did hurt, but I was just determined to deal with it. So anyway, he kept injecting my head. Then he goes to staple me up. And I got 28 staples in my head. I've still got the scars. You can't really see because I got my hairs growing out, but I can feel them. I got one on the top, one in the back. And I asked him, hey, am I going to stay here overnight? What's going on? Well, we got to get the results of, all your tests back, everything. I said, all right. Well, then the supervising physician for the emergency room, he comes up and he says, well, Mr. Johnson, we got the test results back from your x-ray and your MRI and your CAT scan. He said, your head, neck, chest, and shoulders are fine. Other than those 2 lacerations on your head, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. I don't even have any idea how you are still alive right now. But if you feel okay, you're free to go. To which I responded, I felt fine since I got here this morning, Doc, so I'll catch you later. They could not explain it. Literally no explanation to why I was alive. Also, with me losing as much blood as I did that day, They told me another thing they couldn't explain was I did not need any blood transfusion. They didn't give me anything. They said somehow, we can't explain this either, but somehow your body has been steadily replenishing everything you've lost. You don't need, you're fine. You just got the staples in your head. That's it. They prescribed me some prescription pain pills, and they told me, hey, when that numbness wears off, you're going to be in a lot of pain. You're really going to need these. So I trusted that was true. I got the prescription filled. I never felt the need to take a single pill. Literally. Was never in pain. A lot of the guys I worked with, they were shocked. They thought they'd seen me killed, and they were saying things like, man, you got to be the toughest guy in the world. That probably would have killed any of the rest of us, man. You got to be you're so much stronger than we thought. And one guy asked me, you ever thought about becoming a boxer? You can obviously take a pretty good shot. If that thing didn't knock you out, nobody could with the punch. And yeah, I just laughed. I was like, guys, I appreciate your confidence in me, but it's not because I'm the toughest guy in the world. It's not because I'm so strong. It's nothing like that. I'm alive for one reason, and that's that God's not ready to call me home yet. That's it. It don't matter how tough I think I am or whatever. That should have killed me instantly. There's zero doubt in my mind. I'm alive because God kept me alive. And no one's really ever disputed that with me because no one can explain it any other way. And it was completely a miracle, literally. I grew up in the church. I was teaching Sunday school at the time, teaching about miracles that we read about in the Bible. But sometimes I think we get the idea in our head that, oh, God used to do these things. He used to do these miracles. He still does. Any of you that have seen me one day since November the 1st, 2002, you've seen evidence of a miracle walking right in front of you, even if you didn't know it. Every day I've lived since then has been a miracle, has been a gift from God. That could have happened so many ways. It could have killed me instantly, as I just stated. It could have also put me in a coma. It could have paralyzed me to where I was in a wheelchair the rest of my life. It could have given me such severe brain damage that I could never work again or have a coherent conversation. I could be living with my parents and my sister, and they'd be having to take care of me like I was a child for the rest of my life. I could have never driven a vehicle again. There's so many repercussions that could have transpired. All that happened is I got 2 scars on my head. It's been almost 21 years. I've got no physical ramifications from that. I don't have frequent, or I never have blackouts, hearing noises other than just the voices in my head that I always hear. Never have dizziness. I've never had migraines, never been to a neurologist, no damage to my spine, literally nothing. Just got the scars on my head. And God did that to get my attention, I firmly believe. At that time, I was doing stand-up comedy, and I had felt Him telling me that He wanted me to pursue a career in acting and in movies. And I was kind of dealing with that and dealing with coming to grips with what that was going to look like. And after that happened to me that day, after I had my head busted open, I was on light duty for 2 weeks for doctor's orders. And during that 2 weeks, I kept feeling God telling me, okay, it's time to move on. I didn't create you to work at this factory forever. It's time to move on. And I actually had the audacity to debate with Him and argue with Him. I was like, God, I'm making good money here. I'm comfortable here. I got a great schedule. What am I going to do if I leave? I was like negotiating with God. Okay, maybe I'll quit here if you tell me where I'm going to go from here. What is that going to look like? And I'm so thankful to this day that the only answer He gave me every time I asked that was, Jared, do you trust me? Then follow me. That's it. You need to worry about anything else. You trust me? I'm telling you to follow me. You trust me, then follow me. And it really taught me a lot about putting my faith into action. Now, I can say that I have faith. I can talk about how strong my faith is all day long. If I don't ever put it into action, it's just words. It's just noise. It doesn't mean anything. Our faith always is accompanied with action. That's what it is. Our faith comes with trusting God and taking actions and stepping in the direction He tells us to go, even when it doesn't make sense. So me leaving that job, I did leave there 2 weeks later. Didn't know where I was going to go, but that put me in motion uh, to begin pursuing my acting career. And within a year, I had landed a lead role in an independent film that was shot in Louisville. And since that time, I've written several screenplays and written books and been in some other movies. And God's still writing my story. He's still revealing new things to me. He's revealed some things in the past few years about avenues He wants me to pursue and things He's called me to that I hadn't thought about before. So it's a lifelong process. Still following Him, still trusting Him. He's still writing the story of where He wants me to go. But if I had ignored that and said, "No, I'm just going to keep working here because I don't know what it's going to look like," I could still be working there. I could be comfortable, making good money, or whatever. But I wouldn't be where God wants me to be. I would have been comfortable being somewhere that I thought was good. But sometimes being somewhere that's good will keep you from being where God really wants you to be. And I'm very thankful He helped me to realize that. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with everyone today. It's a miraculous story. I'm very thankful that God brought me through that and that He's still revealing things to me today and still teaching me to walk in faith. I just want to encourage all of you, even when things don't make sense to you, even when you don't know where to go. If you trust God, then follow Him. That's really the only reason we need. So I'm Jared Johnson. Thanks for listening, and hope I see you soon.